Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I am having a wonderful morning, and it's made even better by the fact that today we are going to be talking about emotional agency with Ira here, who works with Emergy. You're a partner in the business, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. All right. So tell me a little bit, first of all, about you and what you do so that people will understand a little bit more about what we're going to talk about today, because emotional agency is not a term that everyone knows. So
Yeah.
help us out.
All right. Thank you, Catherine, for having me. I've been waiting for our session. So exciting
Me too.
be able to talk about this super important topic in today's work life. So first of all, energy comes from two words, emotions and energy. So what we try to bring to the workplace is emotions and energy, understanding emotions, dealing with emotions, and building the kind of emotional climates that can thrive in these times.
That's wonderful. That was a great summary, by the way. That was a really good. My summary for what you do is so long. I think I'm gonna have to watch this clip a few times and practice that, because I am not being as concise as I could be about what it is that you do. And I want to stop real quick and just hit on something. So a lot of people go, emotions don't belong in the
Oh
workplace.
yeah.
There's a problem with emotions work. So talk to me a little bit about why we need to address emotions in the workplace.
Well, maybe I start with my own story, how on earth I ended up here, because I've been with Energy, 4.5 years, and I love it because I can genuinely help people to make their lives a little bit easier. But it wasn't like that for me at first. So I spent about a decade in big four companies, Deloitte and PwC, leading all kinds of projects and being the subject matter expert and always concentrating on the subjects, the facts, the figures. And my mantra was like, leave those emotions out of the workplace. Just do whatever you can do in your power to keep them out of the workplace, because they are only a distraction, a challenge, a burden. And so that's how I believe the world to work around. And then about 10 years ago, I became a manager the first time, and I started to realize that I had been completely wrong with my assumptions. First of all, I noticed that people don't get motivated about their goals.
That's true.
And second of all, I understood that beyond the nice slides and having the perfect font and the layouts and even the data correct, that is not enough. There's like a power source, a force that actually impacts us a lot more than the content in the slides.
That's so true. That's so true.
And, because it hit me so hard, because those were my assumptions. This is how you lead people. This is how you make things happen. And then I realized I had been completely wrong, because actually the emotions are the driving fuel. They are actually the showstopper. Because if you think of fear, for example, or shame, those are emotions that actually they are the biggest break or the showstopper for things moving forward or any change to take place. And I started to realize that there is something in here that actually causes us to behave in ways that our rational minds cannot explain.
Right.
And so there my journey started to try to understand, like, what on earth is happening here? Something that I haven't realized or I haven't paid attention to. And yet again, I come to realize that it's still like that in many workplaces.
Right.
We often think that it's either or. We are either focused on the goals and the KPIs and getting things done and the business goals, and then the emotions are the other way. But no, they are not.
They're not. They're linked.
Yeah. They are.
So we're going to hit on that in a second, but I want to touch on something that you said twice. So you talked about how you were wrong. So I want to hit on that for a minute, because a lot of people are afraid to mention that. And actually, so there's a lot of, I think, misunderstanding of what ego means. So I've been doing a lot of studying around this for a project that I'm currently working on. And ego is actually a very important defense that you develop as a child. And it teaches you, how to protect yourself and how to, be safe, all of that. And I think that, but then as you get older, you have to learn how to curb that, right? Like how to not let it limit you. So you still need that ego defense, because that's what's going to keep you moving forward in a psychologically healthy way. But you can't let it swallow you whole, right? And kind of just become your everything.
Yeah.
And when we see people dig their heels in and refuse to change, that's the ego defense. Yeah. That is your automatic, biologically programmed defense going, no, I need to be right. I need to be safe. I can't change because that means I was wrong, and that's scary and that's bad. But what we have to realize is, with the diversity of thought and idea, and I don't mean diversity just from the standpoint of, different race, different neurodiversities, all that, although that's all beautiful, but just difference in terms of thought and ideas, and that's how we grow and move forward. So we have to learn that that's safe, which you did. So yay,
I had to.
no strong ego defense. And so I just want to hit that that's very important. So if you find yourself being adverse to this type of change, adverse to certain types of message, understand that A, that's a very natural response, but B, that it's also not the best, because it's going to stunt your growth. Just look at Ira, and she went through a whole transformation of way of thinking and way of being that's led her down this beautiful new career path. So I just wanted to hit on that real quick, and I hope that's okay, that the ego defense has got to go if you're going to move forward and progress, including with your emotions.
That's absolutely correct. And I would like to continue with that, because lately I've had a lot of discussions with the paradigms, and that's related to the ego, or the way we should be, or what should I be like to be credible. And I was just having this week a conversation with a dear friend of mine, who said this mantra that I heard in the university, like stop smiling because it makes you not credible. And that's,
ew,
we start
that's unfortunate,
belittling ourselves because we have these images in our minds, like this is how you should be in order to be credible in work life. And also a little bit of the same thing with emotions.
Who wants to work in a situation where in order to be successful you can't be happy? Yeah. Or enjoying your work? Who wants to work like that? That's awful.
Well, yeah, luckily that was like decades ago, but still, those words hit us, and those are the ones that we start believing and telling the stories. So my point was, the same thing applies sometimes with emotions. Like we have these pre-assumptions when we start talking about workplace emotions. Many people think that, it's just being empathetic all the time, the continuous understanding and only concentrating on the positive stuff, which is absolutely incorrect. Because the emotional agency that we will be talking about shortly, it's also about how do I bring up the top topics to the workplace, or start talking to my colleague, or the conversations that no one really wants to have because it feels unpleasant.
Oh yeah. And you have to have those conversations in the workplace. I've consulted, I've led, I've managed, and I will tell you, they have to be had. They're not fun, but they absolutely have to happen in order to move forward. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. So the concept of emotional agency, let's kind of put a really strong definition. I know you kind of gave us a summary earlier, but can you give us, how do you actually define that, as if you were going to write it into a dictionary?
Yes. So that's a good question. So it actually builds upon the emotional intelligence that many of us have heard for decades.
Right.
Daniel Goleman and those have done a tremendously important job on defining that. But the limitation with emotional intelligence is that it oftentimes assesses something in an individual. And when we talk about the work context, we actually need a larger view on the topic. So emotional agency is actually a combination of emotional intelligence, which means that people are aware and they take responsibility of how do I deal with my own emotions and how do I deal with your emotions in this conversation, for example. But then it also includes active influencing on emotions in workplace interactions and organizational practices. So it actually increases that skill and competence to be part of the workplace, to be part of the group dynamics. And that's hugely important in order for us to, to introduce change, tangible results in organizations, because it starts with the individuals, but there is the collective emotional climate that we all are part of. So that's the important factor, the group dynamics.
So it's almost like you're combining psychological safety and emotional intelligence, but with kind of bringing the emotions into the psychological safety element, which I don't feel like is talked about enough. People, and by the way, psychological safety, if you do not know, is the concept. People always understand this term, and it kind of makes me giggle sometimes with the funny definitions I've heard. But basically, it's saying that in an environment that you feel safe to bring up topics, to have the conversations, like you said, to have the difficult conversations, that type of thing, and that you feel comfortable to basically own your job and to be, an active participant in the work. And that's really kind of that's a very loose definition. I wish Kristen Durney was on this so that she could define it better than me. But that's kind of what this is. And this is adding the emotional element to that, because people forget that. Yes, you need to be inclusive. Yes, you need to do all this work, but the emotional aspect is such a big part, because whether we like it or not, for the vast majority of us, we're emotional human beings.
Oh, yeah.
And there are one or two exceptions floating around out there. And I'm even on the less emotional side of things, very much left brain, very, very much left brain. But it's still important to have that emotional element. So I'm going to talk about that too, because some people go, well, I'm not emotional. My team's not emotional. Talk to us about that and what that actually looks like in terms of what they're seeing versus reality.
Yeah, love to do that. And you're absolutely right. Whenever there are people, there are also emotions. So we're always talking about this power couple in our minds. And I actually consider myself being on that side as well. I'm really goals oriented, fact oriented. So I'm not, I might be emotional, but also those things are important. So my point is that whenever there are people, there are emotions. And in our minds, even if we say ourselves or tell the story that, I just make rational decisions, that's not correct. Because all the time, this power couple is present in our minds, the rider and the elephant, the reason and the emotion. And the point here is that to acknowledge that those exist, both of them exist at the same time. So it's kind of dumb not to understand the role of those emotions,
Right.
Because if we ignore the fact that the emotions are part of the equation, if we ignore them, we don't have any control over them, or we can't use them in a wise way or a wise manner. So that's the whole thing, to be able to combine the rider and the elephant, to have them work in an optimal way. Because if you think, at least I have felt many times when my elephant goes all doo, and then the rational mind has no part in, taming the elephant. So that's the whole thing, to understand that those are present all the time. Every decision is impacted also with the emotion. So I think it's pretty stupid not to pay attention to the emotions.
I agree. Oh my gosh, I agree so much. And I love that you use that word. People don't use the word stupid. It makes people feel bad. Well, sometimes things are just stupid. I'm not calling a person stupid. I'm saying this thing is stupid. And it really is. And it's And it's so damaging that I think it's important to emphasize that, because I have seen in a workplace when that's denied. I have worked with a CEO who says, I'm all logical, I only
Oh
make
yeah.
decisions this way, but then who will explode with anger
Yeah, exactly.
and and fire people that don't need to be fired or do something completely crazy. Um, so I think you're right. I think it's that balance, right? We have to understand both sides of every person, that there is the logical and reasonable side, and then there's the emotional side. And everybody is different. Like your elephant may be different sizes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, oh
But
yeah.
and that's a thing. But but it is still existent in all of us. It's one of the things that we have in common as humans. It's just how the human anatomy and brain work. So building on that and thinking about it. So we need to work with the emotions, but how does that, before we dive into the how to do it, how does that affect ROI and achieving goals? Because we all know
Mm-hmm.
that's what the business owners and the managers and all that, that's what they're going to ask. That's what they're going to, why do I care? Right? So tell us the why from the business side, please.
Well, first of all, they have everything to do with our performance. So, because our emotional state has a direct impact on our ability to use our brains, to solve the
Yes.
daily problems, to be innovative, to be in a contact with the client. The way the client, let's say you have a sales meeting with a client, what you bring to that meeting and how you're able to interpret and utilize your emotional agency in that situation actually defines the outcome of that meeting. It's not just the knowledge, but it's the combination of your knowledge and capabilities and then the emotional intelligence. So
Yes.
again, it's not either or. So it impacts directly your performance. It has an impact on your memory, on your ability to deal with stress, on your ability to get your message through, on your ability to master those tough conversations when you have to bring up the tough topic.
Absolutely.
So and this is why I actually joined Emergy in the first place, because I have a degree in finance. I'm an economics dude. So, you know, I have to be
That's
honest
so
that
cute.
when we talk about emotions and why they are important, the one side is that it's there is direct evidence that emotional intelligence and emotional agency increases the well-being of people. That's one part. But the bigger part, again, the larger context, is that on an organizational level, it actually has a direct impact on the productivity element. So
Absolutely.
why I'm so fascinated about this is, again, they are not either or, but we can have a systematic approach on increasing both of these. The well-being of individuals, which actually then happen to me to be more committed and engaged. They feel the sense of belonging. So I know that workplaces are struggling with attracting and retaining people. So that's direct linkage. Again,
Oh,
you will
absolutely.
save money when you can keep the happy people performing well. And also then on an organizational level, actually, we have research backed evidence that these skills will actually positively impact the outcome of any strategic change program you implement, or even the strategy implementation, or your ability to achieve the business goals.
Right.
So
Absolutely. And just to back that up, think back, folks, anybody watching this, to people that you've seen really own a room, really own a meeting, really own some kind of gathering where people just are captivated by them. They're not captivated because of the awesome facts they're doling out. God, I wish that was it, because I could give you facts all day. I would own every room I've ever walked into. It's the emotional element. Look at Tony Robbins. He's one of the most famous speakers across the world, and his presentation is all emotion pretty much. There is very little fact. It is all emotion. And the same thing carries over into business. Sales is emotion. Customer service is emotion. Everything is tied into that. Even IT, when you really get down to it in its own quirky little way, is tied to emotion. And And so it is very important to tie that in, and the ROI on that. So, I mean, just from the hiring perspective alone, and the instead of the churn and burn, getting those effective hires that you then retain, you have to, and it's not just keeping people happy. That's the common misconception. People think, oh, they just need to be happy all the time, just super happy. Well, that's not life, right? You're not just gonna be way up here. Let's talk about it, because it's not just happiness, right? There's so much more to it. So talk a little bit about it.
I think you made a super important point, because this is one of the misperceptions that I hear all the time. Oh, so we talk about emotions at workplace, and developing the emotional climate. It means that we should all have fun all the time. No, it does not mean that, because actually we have research backing it up that just one of the facts is that if we want to achieve something big, or achieve the goals that we have, even if they weren't that big, but anyhow, if we want to make a difference, to have something achieved, it means that it's a roller coaster, ups and downs. I mean, they come and go. The whole point is that how can we deal with that? How can we deal with the unpleasant negative emotions, and how can we, on the other hand, emphasize and to increase the power of those authentic positive emotions? So when we talk about emotional climate, which is part of the emotional agency, which is the collectively shared, I mean, it consists of individuals and the collective thingy. So everyone in a
Did you just
group.
say collective thingy?
I did.
That is glorious. I was like, no, that was great. I just when you forget it, I say that kind of stuff all the time. I'll just say thingy, because the term will just leave my brain, and I just want to keep marching. That was cute. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I love it.
No worries. When we were preparing, you said keep it casual. So there you go.
That's right. Like, just bring your humanity, whatever it is. Let's just do it. Well, let's talk. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Keep going. I'm so sorry.
No. That's good. We are creating a shared emotional climate as we go, right?
That's right.
So what it means is that going back or linking this concept to psychological safety, which is a fuzzy word that some people think, oh, it happens somewhere else. Someone else is creating it. But no, actually, you're part of it. I'm part of it. So we are always, when we're in interaction, creating that. And the same applies to the emotional climate. People in a certain group, actually, what they bring into the group creates the commonly shared and experienced emotional climate. And when we talk about flourishing or thriving teams and organizations and their emotional climates, as we have researched this a lot, also what leads to success and what actually brings resilience or adaptability for change is a rich and diverse emotional climate. It is not only positive. So again, because we always have these perceptions in our minds that I have to be like this, or our team needs to be like this. So no, lower the bar, and deal with whatever is happening and deal with it. And that's it.
That makes me so happy, because I preach this all the time about hiring. So I teach all the time that don't picture your ideal candidate, because it actually creates biases in your mind, and it will limit your ability to pick from very creative options, right? And so, but that applies too, even once your people are with you. Stop expecting everything to look a certain way, which I get is okay. Understand, folks, I'm a type A personality, okay? Like, I get what I'm asking you to do here. I understand. But it works better when you just have the expectation that everyone follow the mission, or that everyone work toward the same goal, and then let that look however it looks. Just, this is it. And some days we're going to have a bad day collectively as a group, because sometimes, if nobody ever told you, I will, work sucks. Even as much as I love what I do, there are days that I'm like, why am I doing this? This sucks. I do not like today.
Yeah.
And I have to sit there and I have to remind myself of the ultimate mission and the ultimate, you know, ultimate goals of what it is that I'm trying to do. And I have to tie that into my emotional state, because otherwise I can't work as effectively. Because there are days, trust me, especially when you work around inclusion work, that you just want to shut down, because the stuff that you're seeing, it just shuts you down. It is emotional work. It is emotionally taxing, and it will just shut you down. So this is so very important to remember. So I absolutely love that you're talking about this, because I think it's something that's skipped a lot. So I want to talk about how emotional agency, so we kind of know what it is, right? So first of all, how do we achieve it? Let's start with that. And then I want to dive into some other questions that I have for you.
Yes. So whether we like it or not, it starts with ourselves.
What? So, I have to work. Ira, come on now.
I know. And it's the toughest part.
No, and lower really, that ego defense. Lower that ego defense.
Yeah. So, because agency, the word itself, what it means is active participation, and it's influencing intentionally, taking responsibility. So unfortunately, we cannot outsource that part. It starts with ourselves. So being aware of what is it that I'm going through, what do I bring to this meeting with you today, with all these people, and how do I take active responsibility of that? And I think that links to the psychological safety as well. This is one part that I want to add. Being able to express your thoughts, your emotions, or your viewpoints in a responsible manner. So that's one.
Responsible and then, manner. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I want to real quick before you proceed on that. I want to hit on the responsible manner aspect. And that means receiving it in a responsible way. That means receiving the information in a responsible way. And it means giving it in a responsible way, right? So what does that look like? Because a lot of people are going to go, okay, well, that sounds good, but what does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, I give you an example. I also have those bad days, and I sometimes think, why on earth am I doing this? Although I love my job, but there are ups and downs. So for example, me going to a team meeting and having one of those bad days. I go there, and I mean, emotions are contagious. We start as we have been discussing with you. We start in a microsecond. We start making all these assumptions. Oh, why is he like that? What's the tone of voice? Oh, da 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 da. And so the responsible way of me would be then to say, I just want you to know that this morning was bad. Everything went against my plan. So I'm feeling frustrated, and I'm feeling angry. And I just want to let you know that this is what's going on in me, so that you don't have to start making the assumptions what's going on with me, or start to think that, oh, is it because of me? Have I done something wrong? So sharing in a responsible manner, like doing an emotional self-disclosure, saying, just want to let you know that I'm not having my best day today. And if I sound a bit quirky or, not myself, this is what's behind it, so that it's easier for you to,
absolutely.
I'm trying to take care of it, but I can't absolutely or completely do that. So just to let you know, just a small example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite clients, in fact, they were on my show Career Launch Live earlier this season, Synchro. One of the things that they do in a meeting is they start off the meeting and they say a color, and they base it on our traffic light system here in the United States. So it's red if it's bad, yellow if it's so, green if it's good. And you can even give variations therein. And they start every meeting with everyone saying how they're feeling. represented by a
Mm.
color. So you don't necessarily have to put a name to it if you're not comfortable or you just haven't figured it out yet. And then we have a chance to talk about why. And sometimes some of us would help the others. Oh, I didn't know, I have some extra time. I could take on part of that project. Or, hey, that's, it's great that you're having a better day. That makes me feel, that kind of makes me feel better to hear about your success over here. So and it also gave us a chance to feel commonality, because if 4 of you out
Oh
of, let's
yeah,
say 8 people are having a red day, okay, then we need to work on this. And also it tells you we do not need to make any decisions in this meeting today. If we're red, we don't
exactly.
need to be making decisions. That is not the time to do that. So it really does set you up for success to start every day or every meeting or however by sharing that with your team. What are your thoughts on something like that?
My thoughts are just, I wrote down a word, sharing, because this is super important. We have been craving for this. And
Yes.
we are so used to these bullet point meetings because now we have all the time. We don't have to commute. We can just, have 30-minute meetings in a row and to stick to the agenda. People don't
Yeah.
want that. Even if
No.
we stole 10 minutes of the 1-hour meeting and we did this little check-in, like, what is it that I'm bringing with me to this meeting, and sharing that, it makes all the difference. We will have
Yes.
better discussions. We will have better psychological safety. We will have better decisions, and we will
Yeah.
have the sense of belonging, which we have been craving for.
And I don't mind. Oh, absolutely. And I don't mind sharing this. The first time that they did this, I was sitting there going, this is the dumbest, most juvenile thing I've ever seen. Why are we talking about colors and our feelings at the beginning of a meeting? I'm not going to lie. I was a critic. A couple of weeks later, when I saw how not only it affected the positivity of the meeting and the productivity of the meeting, to get all of that out, kind of gave you a chance to vent, gave you a chance to share, gave you a chance to feel connected. It also told us where we actually needed to focus a lot of our efforts a lot of times, because, oh, that's our struggle. Okay, well, we're going to talk
Exactly.
about that instead of this other thing. Actually really helped productivity, but it also helped the team pass that. The team was comfortable with each other. They would talk to each other more. They would give more honest feedback to the bosses. It was really incredible to see the difference that this little tiny, seemingly ridiculous exercise
I know.
really was. And I felt silly doing it the first few times, but I rolled with it. And thank God that I did, because I found a brilliant tool that now I am a huge advocate for, and I preach all over the place. In fact, I made them talk about it at one point on a live. So it's there again, lower your ego defense, please, and be willing to learn, because some of the stuff sounds very woo-woo, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh God, this sounds weird and I feel uncomfortable. And I've been taught not to share my emotions, or I don't
Yeah,
like to share my emotions. This is weird. And you don't have to go super detailed. That's not what this is for. Just share the basics. And I feel like it really works.
yeah. I want to add something that I heard a couple weeks back from a client, saying that, because we were talking about what's the level of sharing. Like, there's this fine line. So what he said was, be personal but not private, and I think that really helps. What is
Oh,
the
yeah.
relationship, and also to
Oh, yeah.
understand that sharing is not complaining, and complaining is not
Right.
sharing.
Yes. That's so
Yeah,
constructive sharing.
exactly. And listening to you, what an important piece of information those top lights or the colors were actually, even though it sometimes sounds a bit naive, but it's not.
Right. It's not
you
at
know and
all.
it, and that's another example, but because when we sometimes people think, again, these paradigms in our minds is that when we start talking about emotions at work, does it mean that we only talk about emotions at work?
Right.
Well,
No.
heck no.
No,
No,
please
no, no.
no. That's gonna
E-
get real weird real quick.
exactly, and it's gonna be draining, so don't go there. But to understand that every single IT process or KPI or an OKR or a project role or whatever it is, those things that we have at work, all of them bear an emotion. They will awaken emotions in us. And if we don't take that into account, we can't get the benefits out of those super important things like structures and accountability and processes and data, etc. To understand how do people perceive these is super valuable information. And so, what was your original question?
I don't know, but that went better. So I like it. Humanity, we embrace it. We embrace it. So,
but I remember.
Oh,
yeah. How do you do that? So actually, I was listening to your example, and what you shared was an example of emotional agency.
Yay!
It is something that you intentionally, because emotional agency is a systematic process. It is, the individual capabilities, but then how do we link that to the organizational practices that are anyway taking place in the organization? Team meetings, development discussions, recruiting processes, end-year discussions, strategy. How do we take those super important topics and integrate them into our daily lives? So it is not an add-on, but it's like a lens that you take a look at the stuff that you do at work anyhow, and you systematically bring those there. That's how you create emotional agency.
Absolutely. I love that. Oh, that was such a good answer and very concise. And it was very friendly to the left side of my brain, which made me
I'm glad to hear.
Happy. That made me my brain lit up like, ooh, I get to do processes. Yay. But it is very true. It is kind of all encompassing, and it is kind of that broader lens. So speaking of broader lenses, so I do a lot of work, as you know, with inclusion.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
So, super important work.
So, thank you. So I think so. And so how does that tie into, so I recently listened to a friend of mine, Kristen Durney, who's brilliant human and has some fantastic information about psychological safety that and work that she's doing around psychological safety. And so we talked about inclusion from that aspect. So let's talk about how emotional agency will work hand in hand with inclusion and kind of how they feed off of each other. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes. And I would also add the other important factor, diversity.
Yes.
IND.
Diversity. Real diversity, not tokenism, folks. Not, exactly. I found one Black person and one woman, and now I'm done. That's not how it works.
No, I'm talking about understanding and accepting the diversity of emotions.
Oh, and that too. Yes. Emotional diversity.
Yeah, because that's part of the inclusion. If you cannot tolerate the fact that, let's, I'm going now to lessons learned from our current academic study, which is how emotional agency can help with strategy implementation. And I want to share some like lessons learned and the best practices of teams and leaders who have been successful in that. Who have used emotional agency as a source for making the strategy happen every day. Because that's implementation. And one of the things is that those successful leaders have been able to understand that I cannot force people to get enthusiastic about the strategy, even though I wanted to. Because that's like the hard-coded thing in our minds when we're leaders and we are, our responsibility is to have some changes or strategy happen. We start to think that, I need to get people all excited. But no. Because it might be that those people that you now try to get all enthusiastic about and excited about are actually feeling overwhelmed or sad or fearful or ashamed or angry. And if that's the emotional climate that they are in, how can you twist that into being all enthusiastic? So the point is that you actually have to start paying attention and have the courage to work with whatever they are feeling right here and now, and to able to help them deal with those emotions, then you actually create the inclusion. It's not happening, through the PowerPoint slides, but it's actually happening how you treat the people and their diversity of emotions and experiences, even though it could be absolutely different to what you're experiencing as a leader or what you're hoping them to experience right here and now. But
Absolutely.
if you're able to do that, then actually you can suddenly start realizing that people are getting a bit curious maybe about the strategy, and it might be that they actually get excited about it, but it's not a forced action.
Right.
So that's one. And then the thing about inclusion and emotional agency, I think it's because everything is linked to the fact that everyone needs and wants to feel included and valued as an individual in the group that they belong, or with the people that they work with, and to be able to do that and accept the diversity and the differing viewpoints, we need curiosity. We need to be able to understand what this person triggers in me, and how do I take responsibility of that in order for me to then act in an intelligent manner with the other person. So it's the
I like that you specified intelligent manner, not just interact in an intelligent manner, in a productive manner, right?
In a responsible and productive manner. So I think again, it's those actions and decisions that we make, those little moments are the ones that create the inclusion or not.
Absolutely. And this applies. So I've spoken, I had a lot of people ask me, here in the States a while back, we had a very important piece of legislation reversed, Roe v. Wade, and there were a lot of emotional responses to that on both sides of the fence. And I had a lot of people reach out to me, ask me on lives, all this, how do I handle how my people are responding to this? Do I do anything? What do I do with this? And one of the things that I did recommend was the, start meeting with the colors, or however you want to, or as Stacy talked about, the energy levels. However, there's different ways that you can talk about this. But I said, start with that, because again, if everybody's in a red, that's not the time to do certain things. And I also talked about, again, to your point about, if you're trying to get them excited about some project, tell them they're feeling this way, it's just not going to work. And so we talked about the importance of maybe postpone some of that, maybe kind of give it another week. It can probably wait another week. In most cases, it can wait a few days or a week. Let them sit with it, let them feel it, let them, kind of just be on robot mode, because right now there's so many feelings going on either direction, that, you need to let it be. And I got some funny messages, hey, so I'm a guy and I'm supposed to, present this and this, but I don't think the women want to talk to me right now. Because I had one guy and he was specifically presenting on health benefits, and part of that, was affected. So he was like, I don't think this is going to go well. And so we just kind of talked through, that type of thing. And if I'd have known you at the time, I would have definitely sent him your way. But you have to, as part of inclusion, you have to understand that how one person feels about something may be different than how another person feels about it. And you have to leave room for that and work with all the emotions, and I always laugh because people, it's not my job as a leader. BS. If nobody told you, again, let me be the first. Your entire job as a leader is to take care of your humans. Exactly. That's it. You're basically a work parent. That is your job.
That's an excellent word. I'm going to
You
write it down.
just,
Work
you have
parent.
work parents. That is your job. You have to take care of these humans. What resources do they need? What, how are their emotions? How are their goals? What do they need to learn? These types of things. That is your job, your entire job. So take it seriously. And if you need help,
Absolutely.
reach out to Ira.
Catherine, again, listening to you, I wrote a word down. Are you interested in hearing what I wrote down?
I am, as long as it's not stupid.
It might be. I don't think it is, though.
I meant as long as the word's not stupid. I meant as long as the word is not stupid. I'm good.
I wrote down boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
Because I absolutely agree with you that the work parent's role is to take care of the ones that, I mean, to be able to, or the role is to make everything in their power to enable the people that the leader leads to be successful in their work. And sometimes it also means, again, going back to the emotional agency and also the inclusion, is to understand, do I have the capacity to do that today, right now? Or should I suggest that, I really want to help you, but I understand that I sense that I cannot be fully present right now, and I want to be.
Yeah.
So can we have this conversation tomorrow? Can we schedule time for that? And
I've had to do that. As a leader, I have had to tell people, I want to be here for you, but today is not the day. So let's do this. Just to your point, let's do this another day. That happened to me. I had one particular day, I had a miscarriage that morning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I still went into work because, I don't know, it's just what I did. And so I still went into work, and somebody came in with a very strong emotional need. And I just flat out looked at her and said, I can't, not today. Just not today. I have no emotional room for you today. That's what I told her. I said, I have no emotional room for you today, but I do care. And if there's something I need to do immediately, just tell me what that is. I'll do it, and then we'll talk it through tomorrow. So I want to get your take on that. As the recipient of that information, then how that person can respond and be helpful towards their.
What was the response?
Sorry. What was her? What was the? Took it very gracefully. She said, okay, I hadn't thought about that. I'm so sorry. Here's the one thing I actually just immediately need. Let's do that. And then circle back the next day.
But isn't that a great example of how you tuned into your emotional level in response to the other person's request towards you? You heard yourself, made the check, and realized that now it's not the time for me. I cannot be the best version of myself right here, right now. So you took responsibility of that and shared that in a constructive manner with the other person. So I think it's absolutely a correct way to do it.
Oh, good. I didn't botch it, because I will tell you, at the time, I was not as advanced with understanding how to utilize my emotions more appropriately in the workplace and how to tap into them more effectively. That was kind of, I think, a fluke that I might have handled well, just because it was so extreme. It was like there kind of wasn't much of another alternative. But what about, so thank you. But I just want to say, sometimes it is a learning process. So if you're not perfect at this, it's a journey. It's okay. And what about on the responsive side? So when you receive that from somebody, you've gone to them, you need something, you are in need, and someone tells you, I'm sorry, I can't. What do you do with that information?
Well, it's not an easy piece, definitely, if you're in a need for the other person. But again, I think we need to respect our boundaries. I mean, you were empathetic to the person, but also very assertive with what can you give her or him, right, there and then. And I think to respond to that is that, all right, I understand it doesn't feel good, but I understand, I respect your boundaries, and that's fine. And I mean, I want to go back to what you said, the learning curve and this being a learning journey, because at the core of this emotional agency is the continuous learning. It's an evolving process, and what we typically do, it's actually the fifth step in our emotional agency training program, is give it a try and embrace learning. I mean, we are human beings.
I love that.
There is no perfect. I mean, stop trying to be perfect with these. You're not going to be perfect. None of us are going to be perfect. I mean, we're human beings. Give it a try and embrace learning.
Yes, give it a try and embrace learning. That's perfect. And with that, I actually want to wrap up. I think that's the perfect way. Give it a try and embrace learning. Just do it. And I do want to say too that real quick, little PS. We're not saying here that you need to share every emotion that you have while at work, that other people need to share all of their. No, we're just saying work with emotional states of being and create a safe environment so that people can let you know, I'm at a red today, or however else you want to express it. Just leave that space for that. So say it again, your closing remark there. That was perfect. I loved it. And then tell us where to find you.
Yeah, give it a try and embrace learning. And Catherine, you added a super important point. We're not saying that you should share everything, not at all. But as long as you think it'll help the other person to understand, create common ground for you, then try it out with good intentions. Where to find me? The most convenient way is via LinkedIn. Follow me or send me a message. I'm happy to connect. And energywork.com is our webpage. So
yes, and they have a very cute elephant logo sticker thing that I saw on my laptop, and I love it. But I do want to say, definitely connect to Ira. She is very generous with sharing information. She is a fascinating, lovely human, absolutely lovely human being to just have a conversation with. We met at a convention, actually, randomly. Just I complimented someone's dress at a water cooler, and then she walked me over to Ira. So it worked. It worked out beautifully. So definitely connect to her, connect to me. Also, tomorrow morning, I'm back for the final episode of my season for Career Launch Live. So 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern time. Definitely join us. I am going to be having a wonderful conversation with Sam Eaton that talks about the future of work. And in that conversation, we're going to talk about emotional agency. So it will all tie in. Thank you very much for joining me, Ira, and be great this week, everybody.
Thank you, Catherine, and everyone online.